Okay, so thank you all for coming. We're going to do a brief bit of board business real quick. We know that's not why you're here. But whenever there's three or more board members at a function, where there's any sort of board business going on, we have to actually hold a meeting. And there's one action item we'd like them to consider. So we're going to do that real quick, and then I promise we'll jump right into what we're here for.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to call this special board meeting of District 205 to order. Ellison.
Sorrento's.
Here.
Hunnigan.
Here.
Lyon. Phelps.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Sharpie. Walters.
Okay. Do I have a motion to consider approval of the furniture bid specifications?
So moved.
Second.
Questions regarding the furniture bid specifications?
Yeah, I do. So a couple things. I have a concern. The bid come in way over our budget. That concerns me in that not only did it was double of our, and so that concerns me. I understand why and how, but it does concern me. Why?
Well, why does it concern you?
No. Why is it?
Why did it
There's two really good reasons. One, as we asked the teachers what they wanted, there was more stuff that they said they needed for their educational program, like for instance, an $800 storage unit thing that went in each, so those things add up. And trying to get them what they said they needed and trying to make sure we gave everybody what they wanted, those prices went up. And second of all, in hindsight, I'll take the blame. We should have budgeted a little bit higher. So the delta shouldn't have been quite so much, but we're trying to hit everything that they want and buy high quality materials. We could make it cheaper, but then we'd be buying furniture later, and it would in the long run be more expensive. So we feel like this is the appropriate response. If we didn't feel it was, we wouldn't put it in front of them.
So can you give me some numbers as to where we are now, where we wanted to be?
Right, so we're about $700,000 over on the furniture bid. However, for those of you in the audience,
I did not.
for those of you in the audience, our overall budget from where we started to where we are, we're still under budget for all projects. So, you never want to be over budget, but we've been under budget enough on the other things that we're still currently under the budget for all projects.
When do we have to have this? Do we have to decide tonight, or can we table it for February?
Well, if we table it for February, there's a couple issues that could arise, okay? One, they're holding 2019 pricing for us right now. There's no guarantee we get to hold 2019 prices if we wait another 25 days. And the second issue is this is going to take about 25 weeks from start to finish, and so we're running the risk of not having it in the building before.
So if we're going to spend 1.3 million and they will hold prices for 23 days, I have a problem with that.
It's not them. We get pricing through the IPA government co-op. So it's really part of a cooperative pricing. If they did it for us, then they would have to do it for somebody who was only ordering 10 bookcases, not 200 bookcases. So because it's through a government pricing and not their individually pricing with us, that's why they can't hold it beyond January 30th, basically.
How many classrooms are we furnishing?
Let's see here, 25, 50, 75, a minimum of 75 plus.
It's more than that. It's about 82 plus 3 media centers and 3 lunchrooms.
And all the offices. So like for speech path.
PLL.
Yeah, no.
We're doing Steele's office?
When I say offices, I mean for speech pathology, social work. And
No,
all
we're
of
not
those
doing.
offices have other ancillary furniture that they need, like kidney shake tables.
So close to 100 entities.
Okay.
15,000.
Divide that by the number of students that are going to be partaking of it. That's not all.
the form in which we got these concerns. We met Monday, we get this on Tuesday, right? So surprising. I don't like doing the district's business like this. It just doesn't meet the requirements that I'd like to see in terms of, I think, full disclosure, and having it out soon enough for people to review with care.
Community people or us people?
I think both.
Because I think we're elected to do the community people. I mean, and that's just my opinion, right? We're the ones with the other ancillary knowledge to give the input into what the bid is. So, I mean, when I break it down by numbers, the number overall looks very large, yes. But when you break it down to the number of classrooms or entities being used, and then you break it down per pupil, when you look at, per pupil spending, I just, to me, that changes the factor for me. But it doesn't have to change the factor for anybody else.
Another concern I have is, we have enough interest on investments, which is a great, but my concern is that I don't want this to become a trend. I've got to make decisions quickly and that are over budget, and then I've got to dip into, we've done a great job investing and we've got money, and I don't want every time have to say, oh, well, we got this, we'll dip into it. That concerns me.
These were above the projected revenues. So this isn't dipping into our revenues that we projected from interest income. This is above. We've met all of our revenue goals for the year through our investments. And so this is anything that's exceeding, it'd be a surplus from what our projected revenues were.
And I appreciate that, but also that's rainy day fund, and I don't want to keep dipping into rainy day stuff too. I know this is only one, and I'm with Dr. Aspen, we're under budget on the whole umbrella, but this one really took me back. So.
We do want to make sure the new buildings look good, and we all agree on that. I just have concern about the manner in which it took place, and I'm not sure, as I've spoken with teachers, while there was a survey which was reviewed with me, that no one has spoken since the survey to see this is in fact what they're getting. I mean, we're told in the notes that came to us that there was a model classroom set up with this type of furniture. I visited, that's an exaggeration to call it a model classroom. There were very few pieces there that could handle what a classroom would look like. I'd like to take this time to see if this is exactly meeting the needs of the people. Well, it meets the survey needs, doesn't meet the actual needs. Or we buying too much, we buying too little. Maybe the figure should be $1.4 million. Maybe it should be 1.1. I don't know. But the way it came to us and the way it's come concerns me. So we'll get a motion on the table and this needs to be addressed.
What do you think, Wendell?
I'm not for it right now. And first, I haven't had time to really think about it. And it's one thing for it to be $100,000 over budget, but when it's almost $700,000 over the budget, that's just brought a major concern for me.
But I think we all agree that we want the new schools to look good. And make sure we can do that. So we can't underspend by too much either, though. Just make sure it's.
I want to be on the record, I'm not sitting here saying I don't want the schools to be equipped correctly. That's not my point. My point is I want to make sure if I'm going to spend that kind of money that we're doing due diligence into, to your point, maybe we got to spend more, maybe there's something. And to get it on Tuesday and want to vote today on Thursday, I can't do that.
Can I go through what the process was? Because it's been a 4-month process. So we went through, we have met with the architects, we've met with the design firm, we've met with multiple people, and then in December, a survey went out to every single teacher that is going to work in a K-6 building. They were given multiple options on what they wanted, And then from that feedback, based on what a grade level or specific content area wanted, we selected pieces from that. And so then we put together our order, and then every single teacher that answered the survey was showing the exact pieces of what we were ordering. That went to every single person who took the survey. So we have received a lot of feedback. 78 teachers took that survey, and 78 teachers were emailed about what they're getting.
What's frustrating to me, sounds like there's a lot of info coming. I didn't know any of this till Tuesday. And now you're asking me to overspend $700,000 off the budget. So I'm not prepared to say yes.
Any other questions? Okay. Allison?
Flanagan.
No.
Lyon. No. Phelps.
No.
Rodriguez.
No.
Sorrentos.
No.
I won't sit up there.
No. Okay, so folks,
Thank you for your patience.
I believe, how many of you were saying?
Oh, I think.
Oh, okay, all right. So I'm not gonna adjourn the meeting because there's still gonna be 4 board members here, but I am gonna politely excuse myself because it's my niece's 19th birthday and I'm gonna go eat dinner with the family. All right?
Yeah.
So please ask all kinds of questions.
Thank you all for coming. We'll get into why you're here. My name is John Aspel. I'm the superintendent here at District 205. We had up for, I don't even remember, several weeks, a place where you could come in and put or enter your questions for this evening tonight. Now, if you didn't enter a question, that doesn't mean you can't ask a question, okay? We'll go through all the questions first, though, in respect to those folks that already did. So I will just go through them one by one and answer them the best I can, okay? The first one is worried about the safety of students. What is being done in that regard? What I can tell you is we've had a group of about 20 different people, all our security team, administration, going through and creating a safety plan. And the best thing I can tell you about a safety plan is I won't share it with you because that's not a good idea, okay? We don't share our safety plans with people because the people who wish to do us harm would then know what our plan is. So we do have a safety plan. It's ready to go for the most part. Obviously, we want to go through and review it several more times before next school year, but we definitely do have a safety plan created. It says at one district meeting I attended, it was mentioned that the junior high and high school would have different start times. For several years, I will have children at the junior high and high school and would rather not make 2 trips for drop-off and pickup. If they have different start times, there'll be a place students can wait so that parents who are dropping off students will not need to make a trip. Great question. So that has not been completely determined yet, but we would not want to have the start times be so different if they are different, that issue would arise. So, I mean, if they were different, we would probably be talking about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that, so that you can drop your child off. Or if you have a 7th and a 9th grader or a 7th and a 12th grader, that won't be an issue. Okay, so we believe that would be unfair to parents to ask that of them. So that's not part of the plan. It says, during the 2021 school year, will students move from inside to outside several times during the day to get from class to class to mobile classrooms? How will this work in cold weather? Yes, they will have to move back and forth. You know, they only move 4 times. Well, they move 3 times. And on those cold days, yeah, we're going to have to allow students to have coats. So, you know, they'll be able to move in and out with coats during those colder periods of the year. Now, can I also say, if your child comes to school now, could you have them wear a coat? Because we have a lot of up with no coat and it's 5 degrees out. So, well, yay for coats, okay? Why move kids to different schools? Doesn't it make sense to leave Lombard and Churchill alone until after the 712 build is complete? Well, we couldn't really do that because the new buildings, the Steele, King, and Silas Willard will only be K4s, so we have to relocate the 5th grade. And so the 5-6 building is now Lombard. Well, not now, next year, will be Lombard. So we couldn't do that. So we had to put Lombard in play as a 5th, 6th building next year, which means then all 7th and 8th graders will go to Churchill. And yes, they all fit. There was a time when Churchill held 900 students. It's never been added onto, and we're talking about 600 students. So they will fit. So that is why we're not doing that. What will the new start and end times be? Will all 5 grades start and end at the same time? What about grade school? So at this point, we haven't made a determination on what start and end times will be for next year. There's a lot of things tied up in that. Collective bargaining issues that we have to do. So I mean, that's one of the issues. So the moment we get cleared through all those issues, we'll be able to establish start and end times. But I can tell you, we absolutely do not intend to have all the schools start and end at the same time. Okay, that won't work. And we want to make sure that parents can have time to go from one school to the next. Plus, we have transportation. It's a lot less expensive for us to have the transportation done where you can share buses. So after you're done dropping off high school or grade, and then you can go pick up the other, vice versa. So we won't be doing that. Then what is the plan for student safety? Let's see, is there anything different on that? I understand the students will not have lockers and will have coats and backpacks with them. Yes, they will have coats and backpacks. And that is part of the safety plan. Let's see, was there a cost, this is a good one. Was there a cost study comparison done for building a new high school versus the remodel and modular building's total cost? Does anyone here want to guess what a new high school would cost? Yes, we did one. You can't do it. You already know the answer.
8 million.
Does anybody here want to
8
guess?
million.
90 million.
8 million.
110 million. Okay? So $110 million to build a new high school. Okay? We could have got by with one for like 70 million, but you wouldn't have liked it very much. To really build out a building to what we said we needed, it would be about 110 million. So yes, we did a cost comparison. We only have 35 million, 36 million to spend on this project. So that really was never going to be feasible. Let's see. Will more support staff and guidance counselors be added to give attention to 2 more grade levels? I'm assuming that means when everybody's here in this building. Yes. We'll be adding more support staff for the extra students. How is the school district going to ensure student safety and security with the plan to utilize different buildings? Once again, we do have a plan. When will the temporary facility plan be available concerning high school students next year? It already is. We talked about it at the board meeting in December. We had that out. We displayed it at the board meeting, showing where the temporary classrooms would be, which they'll be on Silver Street Boulevard, the airstrip. And then we'll be using Gale and Rose Hogan Welch as buildings, and also Whitehall Gym. That plan has already been done. If somebody wants to see, we could make sure we have it posted on our website, and we can try to make sure we get some of those things done later on. Because we do have some finer points that aren't completely, like where fences are going to go and things like that. Let's see. Is the demolition of Churchill included in the budget for this project? We are not demolishing Churchill. So no. We do have one entity that has expressed interest in Churchill to purchase it, but that hasn't been finalized or anything like that. So our intention is not to knock it down. What are the plans for Gale and Nielsen buildings after they are closed? Similarly, we have some other entities that have talked to us about Nielsen. I will tell you, we're not, bless you, we are not interested in selling Gale because it's on our campus. So that would be problematic to have another outside entity. It would depend. I suppose there's a narrow band of possibilities if somebody wanted it, but that's not been at the forefront of things we've discussed. Let's see. What exactly will be the changes in Galesburg next year for the school district as far as where students will go and how many students will be there now per class when the combining occurs? I don't really know what that question was asking. We'll still have the same class sizes as we do now in our newly reorganized buildings. So each building would have, I guess not each building. Lombard will have roughly 600 students in it, and King and Steele will have 500 and some students in it, and Silas Willard will have 400 and some students in it. Silas Willard is a little smaller. so we can't fit as many students in those buildings. And then Churchill will have about 600 students, and then this area will still have the 1,200 that it has now. Is the school district going to, if the school district is going to require each household to have internet, we aren't requiring every household. Why are they not making the internet free for students in Galesburg? I'm not going to answer that because it's really not stuff we're doing. So, how can I get my kids books for each class they are in for added help? Talk to your teacher and talk to the principal if that doesn't work, and that's more of a building-related issue, classroom-related issue. How many teachers will be losing jobs with the combining of the schools, and what is this costing the taxpayers? No teachers are losing jobs because of this. We're not eliminating staff. And what is this costing the taxpayers? Well, that's a kind of a relative question. We have not raised the tax rate. So what I would tell you is what you're paying in property taxes now, you'll be paying in property taxes next year. Unless you add another story onto your house or something, then that's, a whole other thing. Can we make it so it is easier for teachers to place assignments on the internet and students to go on and answer questions right on the assignment? Once again, talk to your teacher. Why can't we get our kids books for classes they are in for added help? Talk to your teacher. I see Lombard has solar and geothermal, and I'm curious about the cost of this and if the school is making more energy than they are using, and if this is something that will be done at other schools. All right, kind of a bigger topic. So I'll skip geothermal. That was done a long time ago. But we do have it in some buildings, not everywhere. But solar project. So solar project costs us nothing, all right? How that works is the high school, the district office, Steele, and Lombard are currently the places where we've put solar panels in. But we didn't install them. We don't own them. So how that works is we have something called a power purchase agreement. So right now, if you look on your power bill, you're probably paying somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 cents a kilowatt hour for your power. Okay, that's all costs included. That's the cost of paying for the power, the cost of transmission, all that stuff. Okay, so you're paying about 7 cents per kilowatt hour. So what we are going to pay, each building's a little bit different, but what we're going to pay is somewhere between 2.65 cents per kilowatt hour and 3.45, I think, 4, 5, 6 might be. That number's changed because of a couple things. But significantly less, okay? So we've locked in those power prices for 15 to 20 years, depending on the project. Fencing will go up around those as well. We aren't paying for that. That's paid for by the people that installed the solar. Also, it hasn't been done yet, but the one out here behind Yale, that project displaced a soccer field, a practice soccer field. And so the solar company is paying to install a different soccer field, over by the field house. And so that's done at their expense as well. So we're not paying for that. So that will save us a lot of money, all right? What is a lot? Well, a lot of that depends on what the future of power would be in the state. But I can say very comfortably it would be in the millions of dollars over 20 years. Let's see. Does GHS still have a building trades? Yes. And if not, well, we do. So yes, we have building trades. The state, as we know, is taxing Illinois residents like crazy, and I am curious if there are any plans for this tax money to go back into education so we can have more programs for our youth. Well, I can tell you that a year ago, so this is the second school year, the state changed its funding model to the benefit of us, to the benefit of District 205. And so we are getting a lot more state aid than we were. It's Illinois, so that stuff can change kind of quickly. We never know, but we're happy for what we have now. I mean, it used to be called general state aid, which is a whole. I'm not going to get into it, but now it's called evidence-based funding. So it's based on a lot of different factors within your district about how many students you have, what kind of students you have, all sorts of different factors that they factor in. So there's 26 different factors. Let's see, and so we are getting more money. I've seen my kids submit assignments before and they say they hand them in at school, and many times this does not reflect online. Once again, talk to your teacher, talk to the principal. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. It says, oh, how's that? Do you see this internet method of Google Classroom and YouTube lectures eventually phasing out teachers? I certainly hope not. That's not our plan. Trying to coordinate pickup and drop off with grandkids. Is the GHS schedule changing for the 2021 school year start and end time? At this time, I would say no. That's subject to collective bargaining and some other issues, but at this point in time, we haven't made a declaration that that will be changing. I've heard some changes have been made from the original proposal when there was going to be separate entrances for 7th and 8th graders. Will there still be a separate entrance? Yes. Yeah, we still plan to have separate entrances. Is it correct that the 7th and 8th graders will now be upstairs and the 9th graders downstairs? I can tell you we don't know yet. Okay, the architects are still going through how they're going to be separated. What I can tell you is we're still very much in mind of trying to make sure those populations are separated as much as humanly possible. Will there be separate start times for the 7th and 8th graders versus the 9th, 12th? If they are separate, they won't be significantly separate enough to concern anybody. And then my understanding, there will now be 6 levels of grades at the high school. Why would you even consider removing 1,500 seats for common area? I'm assuming that means the auditorium. What does that even mean? There would not even be seats for assemblies for all students, much less for graduations, district-wide music concerts, etc. We have a jewel, please do not destroy it. Okay, I'm gonna guess they're talking about the auditorium. All right, so couple issues. So we only have so much money. The auditorium right now seats 2,400 people. Okay, we fill that up once a year for graduation. As much as we know people like that, we can also put graduation in the gym, which seats 3,200. Plus, if you put the graduates on the floor, now you're looking at 4,000. You could probably seat in there if you put everybody on the floor. So there's more seating in the gym. If that's what we want to do. That's not like we've declared that's what's going to happen. But we are having a very open discussion about the fact that we only have so much money. The auditorium is great, we love it, but how much are we going to put into a place that we only fill one day a year? And so there's only so much money to spend. What's the value? We want to make sure we're providing the most money in spaces where the most kids are going to be the most often. So no decision has been made on the auditorium, but that's, I mean, at the last board meeting, Member Lyon did bring up the fact that we are considering widening out the first floor area. That's where the cafeteria may end up. That is one of the possibilities. That has not been decided, but that is one of the possibilities. And for those who, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to go to Travelog there. I know it's a great, it's a great space. But I'll argue with the jewel part of it. It's termite infested and the acoustics are bad. So I mean, we have to put a lot of money into it one way or the other. The seats were put in 1959. They were used when they were put in 1959. Okay, so it's wonderful we have the space, don't get me wrong, but it needs a lot of work. So we're just having a very open discussion about how much money do we want to spend on it. We want to fix it up, and we do want to fix up the auditorium. But if you fix up I'm throwing a number out. If you fix up a 1,000-seat auditorium or an 800-seat auditorium versus a 2,400-seat auditorium, you can make it a lot nicer if you don't have as many seats in. So, I mean, that's kind of the rub. That must be the hope, but there's one. Will 7th and 8th grade students have extracurricular opportunities separate from 9, 12? Okay, that's been an often asked question. So, yes, and we've not done a good job of messaging. We are not trying to diminish extracurricular opportunities for our junior high kids. We're actually trying to keep them or increase them. So, for instance, I talked about this earlier with the staff. So right now, we allow 6th graders to wrestle, run cross country, and run track. Okay. Under this scenario, we would not have the 6th graders participating, I will tell you that. But if for all the teams that we have now, the basketball, volleyball, whatever it is, if we have 2 teams, we are still planning to have 2 teams. They just won't be called Churchill and Lombard. They'll be called something else, and I don't know what that is. Whether we call them Galesburg silver and Galesburg black, or, you know, what, I don't know. But we still plan to have as much or more opportunities for our junior high students as we do now. So that should go to the next one. Will there be an advisory period at the beginning of the day as there currently is at Churchill? Well, we're not, for Churchill scheduled for next year, I don't have it memorized, to be honest with you. Was there an advisory period at the beginning? Yeah, there still is. There still is. I think that's the last of those on there, so, I think. Right? Yeah, last one. All right, so, now, open up to anybody that has a burning question that has not been asked.
Can you go to the bottom of that question?
Yes.
The last one.
Oh, how will you keep students, oh, thank you. How will you keep students separate at lunch and for PE? I was thinking Churchill. So at the high school, so lunch and PE, so we'll have 4 lunch periods at the high school, so that you'd have 2 for the 7, 8, 9, and 2 for the 10, 11, 12. And that's how you'll keep them separate. And then PE, that's just by space. I mean, we'll have designated junior high periods and designated high school periods for PE.
Now, while they're doing the construction and everything, are they still gonna eat here in the school?
No, good question.
No,
So we're going to turn Whitehall's gym into our cafeteria for 1 year.
Okay. And what about parking? I mean, the parking lot, that's a big parking lot, is that gonna be open? still?
Yes,
And
the parking lot will still be open. There's going to have to be some alterations in terms of, when you go to the northwest corner of the parking lot, there's that access road that goes to the back, like for softball. So we're going to have some security folks out there checking people back, because we're going to have to close Dayton Street. So, you know, there's going to be some changes there, and then staff parking, you know, back here is going to have to be
So then
gone
the kids
too.
will have to walk from this parking lot clear to the back to get to their classrooms, right?
They'll have to walk, yeah, either to the temporary classrooms there or going to Gale, or, yes, there will be more walking
More walks.
for those that drive. Yeah.
So you're saying it's closing Dayton
Yes.
access? Okay, so is North going in Roseland?
Is North going in Rose Hoban? No, next year next year North is at Gale.
At Gale, okay, so I just
Yeah.
wondered how we get.
Yeah.
So there won't be a separate entrance, they'll all walk together around the building, back to a pod with the 7th grader and the senior.
No, because the 7th and 8th graders aren't going to be here next year. They'll be at Churchill.
During the church.
So with that same idea in mind, the passing periods, from now I think 6 minutes, are they going to be longer, I would imagine?
We've stepped it off. We don't believe they're going to need to be, because right now, if you were like in this space and had to go to the field house, it's farther than anybody will have to walk, we think. Now, we might have to adjust that after a week or two if we see that there's some problem, but we don't believe we should have to change the passing period. Yes, sir.
I think you said GHS North was moving to Gale next year. Is that just next year, or is that long-term?
We don't have a long-term home for North yet.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So I know you addressed the issue related to campus safety for GHS, the new location. And I understand that you say you can't share the details of that. Eventually, they're going to be public, because we're going to have to know as parents. But I find it kind of concerning by the fact that it felt like you kind of shrugged that off and you give a date when that'll be available.
Well, we're never going to...
I think we're kind of owed that.
Well, here's the thing I can tell you some things. Sure, like for instance, like we're recommending the board to add a few security personnel that are going to be outside and actively, you know, out in the fenced-in area all day. And we're going to have a place where they check in with their car, so you can't just have anybody driving back there. We'll have controlled access that way. We'll have cameras. We'll have, you know, those things will still be available. We have our administrative supervisory folks spaced out in all these facilities to make sure there's somebody in all those all the time that's not just teaching. So we have those things. We have, you know, our school resource officer. We've been in contact with the GPD about how we can increase the police presence here in addition to that. So we have those things in place now, the plans for next year. So, I mean, those things, the part that we're not going to discuss are like intruder drills and things like that, because that's...
Yeah, we're not asking for those. We know that those.
I just want to make sure yeah.
No, I'm concerned with the buildings. Are they walking in between? Are they going to have any kind of shelter? Because let's be real, they don't have to be on campus for there to be a danger imminent.
Sure.
So that's my concern.
There's
I just wanna
covered,
make sure that
there's covered areas over the front of all of the pods, the temporary classrooms. But that, if they have to go from a temporary classroom to a temporary classroom, they could go on a covered area, okay? But if they have to go from a temporary classroom to Rosehoven or to Gale, yes, they will be out in the elements, just like they are now every day if they walk to the field.
Understood.
So, yeah.
But,
Oh,
no, I have this,
Okay.
go ahead, go.
I was just wondering, are you guys, like, we haven't had very much weather this year, but are you guys gonna time the walking, like, when it gets icy and stuff too? Because I can't imagine doing like that triangle that you guys are talking about.
well, we're gonna have to be very aggressive about snow and ice removal with our maintenance staff. So when it comes to that point, we already know that.
I
That's
just
just
think it's
something.
gonna take a lot longer to walk when it's icy.
Absolutely, we know that, but we feel like we can get most of the ice off of the, and as students walk, obviously, it'll be less icy too. So we want to make sure that we get those trotted areas cleaned off as much as humanly possible.
Are these new classrooms, are they air conditioned?
Yes. Well, if you're at Gale and Rosehoven, no. But the temporary classrooms,
Temporary
yes.
classrooms are. And where exactly are they gonna be?
They're going to be sitting on Silver Street Boulevard on the plane strip.
The strip, we call it now.
Yeah.
The parking lot, right in front of White House.
Well, yeah, it's a parking lot and a road.
Right, yeah, parking
yes,
lot, road, parking
yes,
lot.
yes.
To go to White House?
And the reason they're going there is because there's already concrete and saving us a substantial amount of money. We don't have to put in foundations.
You said no lockers next year for any of the students, so they'll just be carrying their backpacks around all day?
Just to give people an idea, these mobile buildings are, you have 10 classrooms in each one, is that correct? And two are really big buildings.
Yeah, they have, these mobile classrooms there's 10 classrooms in each one, there's bathrooms, there's internet closets, there's staff bathrooms, there's offices. So these are big, big buildings. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious about what this is actually going to look like, the fencing and entry and exit points, and I don't know what kind of security you're going to have on top. I hope it doesn't end up looking like a prison. But obviously for the safety of the kids, if something were to happen, we have bags, we have, in the winter, obviously bulky coats, concealment's an issue.
Right.
I don't want to make it a prison, but, that's got to be a concern with, I don't want to say I put metal detectors at all this stuff, because that's just going to make everything go slower, but I just don't see how we as parents can feel safe about our kids being there, knowing that, it's no different, I guess, than being here and having, except that their bags and their coats aren't allowed in the
Right.
classroom. But it just seems like there's an extra opportunity for bad things to happen there.
I would say that's fair, but I choose my words carefully because I do believe your children are always safe because we are very vigilant. Our teachers do a great job of being visible and seeing what's going on in the classroom. But there's always a risk. Unless they were completely without clothing, there's always places to hide things. So we're just going to have an increased level of vigilance on those things. And that's just reality. I don't want to lie to anybody.
So, I don't know if you figured this out yet, but assistant for checking stuff when they're coming in.
Yes. We'll be having people,
Backpacks.
yeah, so we'll be, well, you mean like people when they're coming to school?
Yeah, like, if we're gonna have them all the time.
Well, if they come into the classroom, they'll have to have a place to put them where they won't just be having ready
I'm
access.
talking about if they're not gonna get
There are hooks in the classrooms,
Yeah.
aren't there?
What's
Are there
that?
hooks in every room?
Yes.
Yeah,
So the pictures showed that.
yes, there's
They
hooks.
won't have their coats.
They'll have their coats up, they'll be able to place to hang up their coats.
Yeah.
And be able to put
Are
their.
those the ones that are they putting them on, have you put them on the website, or are you going to?
We don't have, no, we will at some point,
Okay.
yeah. Well, you got something right, but we'll need some, there is a picture if you go on the board packet now to see, but it's not, yeah, it looks like a room, because that's, it's a classroom. Yes, sir.
Hey, you're talking possibly have a graduation in the gym. Will there be a section for handicap?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of them, for my wife, she's not in a wheelchair, but it's hard for her to walk and to go up all those steps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have those now. When we got the new bleachers, there's great spots there for wheelchair access, yes.
On the facility update page, the modular pictures are there, so you don't have to scroll through the board packet. And
Oh, okay.
the FAQ is also under the building facility update on the website.
All right, thank you
So
for
it's
that
there.
clarification.
Do you know where there may be space for large classes like band?
Yes, we have those, and I don't have them memorized, so I really should bring a map. But yes, we have band is at which gym is it? Gale Gym, right? Gale Gym. Yeah. Alicia.
To the auditorium So if that gets changed around, remodeled, however, where will you guys do plays and band concerts, that sort of stuff?
You're talking about for next year?
No, when everything's done.
Well, it would
Right?
still be, they'd be in the auditorium.
So there will still be an auditorium?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, we'd like to have it, you know, whether it's 2,400 or 900 or something, we will still have an auditorium. We have a great
Okay.
stage there, there's great
Okay,
rigging,
so it'll be
there's
in the
great.
same spot?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So what about next year?
Next year, we've been working with them, trying to figure out some alternate location, we don't know. We're gonna have it, it's just about regarding of where we can have it.
Mr. Rob has locations for everything.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, and that, yeah, we'll need to announce that.
I heard the word earlier during the meeting, proposed 1 year. Is there a hesitation of worry that it's gonna last longer than a year?
Well, of course, I worry about everything.
Is there gonna be a amendment that the construction company be penalized for not being in time? Because we've seen.
Yeah, there's some places where it's appropriate for liquidated damages, and there's other times where it's not, so, you know, we'll have to look at each individual opportunity. I mean, when you have weather issues, I was telling the staff the last time, and I'll get to you in a second, Brett, so you don't keep going. I've been part of, I don't know, a number of construction projects, and every one, without fail, you always find something you had no idea was in your building. You know, oh, I didn't know they put that there, I don't know why they, you know, so, you know, we put in contingency variables for time and money, but they're just based on, you know, assumptions. So, you know, we are going to do everything we can to get it done in a year, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, but, you know, we have to be open to the reality that it could take longer. I mean, I don't want to, I'd rather be honest with you and just say, yeah, I mean, we know it could take longer. We don't believe it will, but we're not promising that it won't be. It's just, that's reality. Brett?
The auditorium is a concern of mine. A number that I heard pitched out was that actual seating in the auditorium under a proposal would be reduced to 800. Is that accurate?
Yeah, 800 to 900, I think, was what the architects told us. Yeah.
So you have a high school building at 1,300. With the addition of 7 and 8, you know, now you're looking at 1,800 kids maybe. You reduce your current auditorium to 800. You really don't have a formal space anymore to accommodate even your high school, junior high students. We all know the auditorium needs work. We all know it's not the most acoustically desirable place. But we have it. It is the largest public formal space between Peoria and the Quad Cities. I just really struggle with the concept of diminishing that. We have it. Once we take it apart, this community no longer has it.
Correct.
And so, you know, down the road, you don't know what will happen. We use it for graduation, of course. We use it for district-wide concerts, of course. That's a formal venue. That's a different feeling than going into the gymnasium. So when you do, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, when they do those district-wide band concerts and district-wide choir concerts, and it's largely filled, when you don't have that ability, you don't have that ability anymore. It's gone. Sandburg utilizes it and has for years. They fill it. I really struggle with that, and I've expressed that. We've got 4 board members here. I'd sort of like to hear from my board members where you're at on that.
I'd be happy to speak to that if that would be okay. I've been in the auditorium a few times, a few graduations, it was filled and it was hot. But otherwise, you know, as a venue for productions, it's a terrible venue. And if we can build something better, I think we should owe it to our students who spend the time in productions. We'll give them a space to produce better. The second reason is, as the question there said, why are we taking the space for a place to eat? The current, and you probably know this, the current cafeteria is being changed into the servery and the kitchen. Okay, so at some point, a nearby space for children to eat had to be made. The proposal being considered right now is to take the back end, take out the balcony, and make this really nice commons eating area that opens up to the hallway as well. It would allow us to use a space 170 days, 74 days a year instead of the handful of days you were able to do. To build a space that large, adjacent to the service we apply to on the other side, and we're talking about millions of dollars to be able to do that. Right now, I would like us, going back to the first meeting of the architects, they said to serve the needs of the 712, we want to have to build 20 more classrooms. And it would be my encouragement to them, as a member of the board and a member of the building committee, to reduce the number of rooms we have to build so we can invest our money in the current building. Because every building room we have to build on takes away from what we can do in the current building. So if we can build an eating commons in a room that we already have a roof on, that already has walls, that doesn't need to be added to, I think we're saving money for the larger building project. And I think it would end up being a more glamorous and interesting space for the high school building, for the community. That's my take on it. Sorry I can't be more articulate.
So building on that though, what is the plan then for graduation and those things that will not be able to be held in the auditorium?
Well, that's interesting. If we build a space that holds 900, that would be large enough for our 7, 8, 9 group or our 10, 11, 12 group. So if you wanted to have a group of your, whatever we want to call these groups, we would have a venue available for them. And what was your other question, Mary? I'm sorry.
The other things that are held in the auditorium that would be larger than the space you'd be.
Well, I know I didn't like this, but it could be the gym where graduations take place. I mean, it worked well enough for Bill Clinton to speak in the gym, so I guess we can have a graduation there.
I'm just troubled by the concept that in, 1960, the elected representatives thought there was a need for a formal space. A gymnasium or a football field is not a formal space. That's a totally different dynamic, a totally different aesthetic than an auditorium. I'd like to see some conversation or possibly some examination of is there a way, I know you've talked about acoustics and sort of revitalizing the auditorium. Is there a way that, some places do where you can sort of divide auditoriums and make it a smaller venue for a theater production, but then you can open it up bigger when you have 2,000 people show up for the district band festival. I'd like to see some conversation about that.
Well, I guess one question I have for you then is, would you like us to keep the auditorium the same so we can hold graduation in it once a year? Or do you want to see a new auditorium with a nice space for kids to eat at and have graduation in a gym or on the football field? That's just kind of a decision we have to make.
But I don't think that's what he's getting at. I don't think he's trying to say graduation shouldn't be somewhere else. I think
But
he's trying.
you're saying you want it in the auditorium like a formal space, right?
But there's other things in the auditorium that happen rather than just graduation. That's, I think, the point he's trying to make.
Right, but if we go down to 900 seats in there, I think we can still hold the plays.
You can't hold the band, the district band.
District band competition won't fit in there. That's what he's trying to say.
The district music competitions fill that place.
Well, and I think to be fair, you may have to change, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like we've already made a decision, but, you can also not have it be 6 through 12. I mean, you could have it be, we're going to start band in 5th grade. So you maybe have a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then you have a 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, you can do.
Absolutely. I'm just saying, we have something. It's one of the largest public auditoriums in the state of Illinois. We have it.
In fairness to Brett, he's told me this many times. I mean, this has been.
It just seems to me that,
sometimes we're wrecking things and destroying them just to get rid of them and make them new and modern. Why can't we keep some of the old formal, the pretty?
I've sort of been told that,
They don't feel pretty.
that there was money for it maybe another way, and then I was told that there wasn't. I just struggle with it because I've heard so many different things that I really don't know what reality is anymore.
So I can say from my side, there's a lot of water's got to go under the bridge yet. So we haven't vetted
don't take this wrong, but we've got the other things where we're focused on the other schools and all that. So the high school, we really haven't had a real hard, all right, what are we doing? It's still in that, just like we're doing here. And I'm soaking it all in. And I'm in your court, Brett, but I'm also, we gotta be fiduciary. We don't have an infinite amount of money. So the first thing, we have to educate our children. I realize what you're talking about, that's part of education, I get it. But so trust us that we're not there yet. We haven't, all the rumors you hear, we're gonna tear out the auditorium, that is false. So trust us, there's a lot of hard decisions ahead of us, but we haven't even got there yet, so.
Russ?
There isn't anybody in the district that spends more time in the auditorium. It's my second home. That's where I live. For me personally, as a parent of 2 kids in the district, I think it rings hollow to say that we need to cut the auditorium because we use it once a year. We don't use it once a year. That's simply not true. And many of us have been in the district long enough to know we spent nearly $20 million on a venue that we use 8 times a year for 8 home games. So to say that we need to cut our fine arts facility because we don't use it to its full capacity every day, it doesn't ring true to me. So and that's purely my personal opinion. And I think there's a misunderstanding. The proposal to move the wall is not remodeling the auditorium. It is not fixing anything in the auditorium. It is not fixing the acoustics. It is just simply making it smaller.
You're incorrect there, Rob. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
The architects have been tasked to build and design a better space. If that's what you were told, you're misinformed.
Okay, good. And it was. We were told that the remodel hopefully would come from another funding source, but the auditorium would not be remodeled under this project. The only thing they're doing is moving the wall and adjusting the seats. If that's not correct, then there's a miscommunication somewhere. But, because I heard at the last board meeting, I've heard here that, we're improving the auditorium. That's not, as a tech director in there, that's not what my understanding is.
Seymour,
if that's true, awesome.
I think there is some confusion out there because I was told by one of the architects that it was possible that we might leave the auditorium and do nothing with it for 2 or 3 years. So there's just so many things that we don't know. I think that creates.
Well, it's in flux. There's no question about that. They're designing every day.
Well, and I don't want to rehash every tiny little detail because I know that's not why you came, but I think it's important for those of you that may not know that when we started this, we were trying to do this in a short explanation. We were tasked with fixing up every building we had through health, life, safety codes that had been ignored for a long time, okay? We also did 13 meetings in the community my first year, 2 years ago, and asking people what they wanted, and people resoundingly said they wanted equal education spaces for students regardless of where you lived in town. So when we went forward with that plan, it resulted in some difficult decisions to close some buildings. And we know those aren't popular, but we also were trying to do it without raising people's taxes. And where we're left with today is somewhere in the middle of $35-something million left to fix up this whole entire building. And I already told you that a new building's $110 million. So these things are really expensive. So when we started this, I stood in front of the staff at one of the things and said, no, I don't think we're going to fix up the auditorium. And this was several months ago, so Russ is right. I did say that. As we've moved forward with it and trying to look at different options and what's going on, when that comment was made, it was based on the assumption that we could build would build a cafeteria to the north of the current one. Well, that's a few $1 million. And where there's this other space that's, as we said, could be available 174 days a year rather than 4, 10, 14, whatever. number of days we use the auditorium. There's not going to be, unless somebody comes in and hands us a check for $25 million, there's not going to be a solution that gives everybody what they want. I mean, that's just not going to be, it's just not. And we're trying to meet every master at least partway. And it's not, we don't want to ever lie to anybody and go, yeah, we can do that, we can do it, and then we don't do it. So, we're trying to be pragmatic and realistic.
May I see a show of hands? And the question that I'm going to ask you is, how many of you would like to see the auditorium, quote, modernized to 900 seats, or just leave it as it is? So how many people would like the auditorium to leave it as it is? Don't touch it.
Say that again.
We're not recording the vote count.
How many of you would like to see the auditorium left as it is? 2,400 baby boomer seats. Okay, so what do you other people want the board to do?
Jenny?
What I want is a creative solution, because like my daughter, always the dance recitals, I know that's not a school function, it's always there. If she goes through theater, seems to be her thing. Like, I want the smaller space for that, for the sound. But I look at Knoxville and I see how they can open and close things. Could you put chairs in? When I was at Knox College, there was an emergency and we needed all of our people in one place. It was one time in 4 years that we needed everybody in one place. I just want to know that it's all been thought through and you have answers to that. And so, yes, I would like it to be redone, but I also want to know, where is that district band thing going to happen at? And those things, because those things are
flexibility.
I want, yes, and I want transparency of, if it's not going to be that way, that's okay, but give me time to be okay with it and to just be, change is hard. So give us time to just go through the change. So I see pros to both sides. I can argue both sides and sit on the fence in either one, but just give us time to process it. And in my mind, I was thinking, is there a way you could open it up if you needed to, or close it? And I'm not the architect. I know there's fire codes. I know there's lots of stuff I don't know and you guys have to consider. But just let us know that due diligence is happening. And so like I said, I see that, yes, there are things that are just not going to happen, but those things that aren't going to happen, could you help have those conversations and help find another place in the community so that our kids still get those opportunities that we really like as parents?
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
So as a technology professional in general, the website for the district, kind of to your point on transparency, is atrocious.
Yeah.
It is the hardest site to find any kind of information, and I work with websites. So that being said, if we could find a way to actually utilize the technology we have available to make that maximize what I assume what we're paying for there, and find an actual space to put that transparency, maybe frequently asked questions, what's our progress, all of that. And I know you can say you guys post everything, but I have to go and do a Google search to find what I'm looking for. There should be a dedicated space to find all of this information. What have you thought of? Instead of us having to find different reports.
Well, there is a building update page on our webpage.
Well, that's good, but I don't know where it is. I'm just saying, I have no clue.
Or thing, and then hopefully find it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you find it, doesn't get me there. So, just the thought in that.
Thank you.
Can I say something to that? Your easiest way that I find is if you go search, like there's your little thing, and if you search in there, that's the easiest way.
Yeah, and that's the only way that I hope I find my spot, but yeah.
Was your other question?
Well, that was it. That's what we actually utilize it the way it should be, and yeah.
I would like to redirect your attention to the incoming next class of 6th graders that are current 5th graders. In order to have successful education, successful emotional growth of these children, you need stable environments. You're proposing these kids get moved from 5th grade to the top tier junior high school. Then, if you're not finished with building, you're gonna temporarily put them in Churchill. Another move, whole nother teachers, whole nother building. Then you're gonna move them again to the high school or second junior high. And they should be fine, hopefully, after that. But I don't see how you can support them when everything keeps changing every year. Do you have an idea, or maybe I just put it in your head that this needs to be looked at?
Well, we are cognizant of the fact that that one particular grade does face that issue.
Huge issue. They'll be very resilient, don't get me wrong, but
We are putting in a plan, or promoting a plan that would add for more counselors in these buildings, so that we have a lot of students with a lot of challenges,
because
regardless
these students
of
aren't used to
location.
counselors. They have never been,
Right.
they just don't have them in junior high, or at the grade school level, so they're not used to, well, I need to go see my counselor.
So we need to promote that, and we need to make sure that those are open. And the other thing I think we have to make sure is that we promote that resilience as much as possible as adults do, because they're watching us.
Yeah, because I just don't want to see them getting lost, because I have one that's in 5th grade now, who's going into 6th, and she's going to be, I just don't want to see things lost, because, oh, you're in this building with these teachers, and now you're going to be in this building with these, and now you're over here where you finally settle down.
Now, the good news is
and now
it's the
you're over
same.
here.
The teachers will be the same. So when you go from 6th to 7th grade, those teachers will go with them.
Yeah.
So, that is,
But while 6th grade, they'll have one whole set of teachers.
Correct.
7th grade will be another
Absolutely.
set of teachers in
Yeah.
a completely different building. If you're not done building, it'll be 7th and 8th grade in one building. Well, maybe they'll finally be done after 2 years, and now they're out to the high school. So
Right.
it's
Yep.
kind of, yeah, it's a lot of stress on the kids. And I want to make sure you understand, as well as the board understands, these kids need maybe a little closer eye watch on them, because it will bring about getting lost in the shuffle.
That's fair.
To address that, just from staff issue, I think teachers will be very aware of it, and they'll do everything in their power.
Oh, yeah, I have no problem with
And
that,
I
but I
think
just want
the
to make sure
district
that
will
the
support us in
district
that.
was
I think the
aware of
district is
it.
very aware and will support
I
us
just
in
hadn't heard
that.
it brought up,
I-
but yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I've got one, I mean, it's a lot of change, and as a parent though, then who has gone through, I mean, we've had kids go through, my husband and I graduated through here. Change is hard, like Jenny said, change is very hard, but I've said, I'm so grateful it's being done. I have a senior for next year, he's not gonna be here, and
Right.
he'll be in a modular classroom, but you know what? It needed to happen.
Right.
And as much as, the next year or two may be kind of a little bit sticky at times and
Well, it's
kind of
just because
messy.
they're not as mature, so they're gonna be
Right.
dumped here and dumped there, and they're not as mature as the high schoolers are, so maybe just
Absolutely.
watch them a little closer.
Georgia?
Thank you.
Yes. Now, are they still talking about air conditioning for the 7 to 12, or?
Yes. 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 The plans are that there will be air conditioning in every building.
I was just gonna add to, so currently at Lombard, they have someone from Bridgeway, correct? Okay, so, and I don't know any utilization by 6th graders, I just wondered if that was going to continue?
We will keep the counselor there at Lombard.
Okay, but then what if the 6th graders, the 5th graders, if they need something, will that be?
So we haven't presented all of these plans to the board, but we are going to be presenting to the board, and I want to be fair to them. We are going to be presenting to the board a plan to increase our number of counselors in the building.
I'm thinking about just as this, preparing the kids and talking to them about what's going to be happening. The more that they know, the less they're going to be anxious.
Right,
The
right.
more prepped they are.
Because you prep the 5th graders, I know at least at Nielsen or mine go, the 5th graders, they have a homeroom teacher, but they're moved around, so they're preparing the kids to
Right.
be moved from one subject to the next, to the
Right.
next, to the next. But your incoming 4th graders going into 5th, who are now in junior high, they're not prepared for that at all. That's another grade, but.
They are switching.
They're switching
Are they
to
going to
grade.
switch now?
They already-
Yeah.
they switched.
That's,
Started this year.
okay, well, I'm in 3rd grade and 5th grade, so I'm like
Yeah,
going into.
no, fourth switching.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Could you speak a little bit, if this is anything the district has discussed? I've not heard it in any of the conversations I've been privy to. Preservation of historical artifacts, paper documents, these sorts of things, a collections room. We've got a lengthy, back to the 1850s here, a documented history. Much of it sits in our high school library. We have things in this building currently from old Lombard College, from the old high school, and things there.
Any formalized plan at this point? No, but I will tell you that we've met with the architects on several occasions and the construction folks. Our plan is to remove as many of those things as possible and store them safely. I won't say where, but I've already been told a group not affiliated with the school about where to safely store paper, old paper, because there's a better place than others. Because you don't just want to put them anywhere because humidity, which, you know, they're here now. But the plaques and the trophies and those things, we've been talking to them about, hey, if we miss something, make sure that you don't dispose of anything that is, because we have a lot of trophies that are in closets, that we just can't display them all. And so we're not planning to dispose of any of those things. And so where we go with how we're going to display them after the fact, I don't know yet. I don't. But we are very much cognizant of the fact that we don't want to lose those things.
Can I tag on to that a little bit? Where's all this stuff from Yale going to go? I have a couple of trophies that I like to
We have to come up with a plan for how we're going to deal with all of those things. So I don't know yet. It is on our radar that we have to come up with something. We're going to collect them first and then figure out everything that we have.
Keep piling on to the same topic. It sounds like you already have some stuff planned as far as where to take the rare stuff that needs preserving, but have you also maybe considered talking to the public library about whether their archives could maybe hold some of that, at least on a temporary basis?
That's not who I've been talking to, just because I know they've had some other facility issues of their own, but
true.
It wouldn't hurt to talk to them as well.
Just brought it up because we have a newish archivist who knows her stuff.
Right.
As far as a lot of the equipment and stuff that's going out of the schools currently, or cleaning out the schools, those kind of things, what's being done with a lot of that type of stuff?
Give me a definition of equipment. So
well, I'm just talking about even old desks, old computers that maybe you're not going to need because you're going to update, those kind of things.
Well, we have a recycling program for our old computers anyway, so we'll just kind of follow in that. I mean, we're going to keep a lot of the computers. I mean, we're just recycling. We have a constant kind of churn on that. As it turns with furniture, so for next year, I'm looking at Lori. So we're going to take Lori's furniture out of Lori's room and move Lori's furniture into her temporary room. And then the plan is to create new classroom furniture for when we move back into the new building. And so then we will be working on a plan to what to do with the disposal, and I don't mean like throw it in a garbage can, okay? Disposal of the old furniture, whether it's a donation or whatever it's going to be, we have to do that.
Well, I was just thinking that with something like that, I know that like Carl Sandburg College, when they were remodeling or redoing something, they had a citywide auction, that earned extra money for the city. And maybe that's something that could be utilized if we could do something like that that would help the auditorium to be upgraded, or, and putting that money toward.
Our stuff isn't worth that much.
I'll start somewhere.
Yes, Other questions?
Yep. I don't necessarily have a question. What I have is more input for those of you who are currently in the district and are concerned about how this whole transition is going to work. I am not originally from this district. I'm originally from Spoon River Valley, where we already had almost exactly what you're talking about doing. We had our grade schoolers who were in one separate building, and then we had our junior high, which was 7th and 8th, that was in the high school building but separate, and then we had our 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. I know it was a number of years ago that it was that way, but it is still that way now, and it's still working. So I just want to kind of let everybody know that this is a plan that can work with diligence and with cooperation. So please keep that in mind and be open-minded yourselves about how this is going to all work.
Right, and thank you for that. And some of the things that we've said in other venues. So, right now we have K-5 together. That's an age span that we're similar. I come to most of the home football, basketball games, and we seem to be fine with letting our kids run everywhere at that, and there's, you know, kindergarten to college. So, I mean, you know, it is, our kids are great kids, and we have lots of adults that are supervising. So, you know, we are going to have kids supervised, and our kids will surprise you at how well they do. There are a lot of really good opportunities to have with the 7 through 12 campus in terms of mentoring opportunities for older students and things of that sort. You know, we really feel confident. You know, I've worked in several districts that have what you're talking about. You know, it was never an issue.
Right.
That doesn't mean we're assuming it's all fine and there isn't planning that goes into it. But you know, just because it hasn't happened here before doesn't mean it won't be okay. I mean, there are a lot of expanded opportunities for kids under this scenario, and a lot more support. You know, one of the big, we believe, benefits of this plan is currently we have a large problem with freshman failure rate and attrition when students transition here from 8th to 9th grade. We feel like this will help with that, not just because of the proximity, but just because of the support plan that we have in place for those students. And you know, there's going to be a lot more support and guided support for those kids as they go through the system. So we view it as a net positive when it's all said and done with the 12th graders together. Lori?
Could you give, like, say, a rough guess, the issue of, you know, kind of determining what the 712 building might be, what the other buildings are going to be? Is that a decision that doesn't really happen until, you know, Rodney, I appreciate your comment as far as, like, from your perspective that your world has been, you know, getting the K-4s, and like, thank you for saying that, because it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like, let's get that, you know, good, because then we can move on to this building. So I appreciate that comment. So will that conversation happen probably in the fall? Like, we'll get kind of this summertime stuff done.
Yeah.
We get into construction, and then we kind of look forward.
So that you understand a little bit of how we front-loaded some of those conversations, and we don't have a plan. I would show you if we did. What we told the architects was this: we would like to keep the 7th and 8th graders as separate from the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders as possible, with the 9th graders in somewhat of a middle ground where traffic can flow from 7, 8 into 9, and traffic can flow from 10 to 9, but there can't be beyond.
Miss question, I'm meaning more like the nitty gritty. Is it going to be called Galesburg Junior Senior High? Is it gonna
We don't know.
So is that more of a fall?
That would be a discussion, yeah, that we, not that that's not important, but that's not as time bound as a lot of the other things, so that would be a discussion probably for later.
Gotcha.
You know, a little bit about my background, just so you know. I was a high school English teacher. I was a high school principal before I was a superintendent. I've been a superintendent for 18 years. But I am firmly in the camp that 9th graders are not high school students. Okay? They are not. I mean, we put them in there, but they're not. They're much more like junior high kids than they are like high school.
I have one, I can attest to that.
Yeah. The difference between a 9th and a 10th grader is vastly bigger than the difference between an 8th and a 9th grader. And so we are trying to orient our logic around that reality, okay? That there are some 9th graders who can thrive in a 9 through 12 environment, and we're trying to be flexible enough that those 9th graders academically can flow up. But we're also very confident that there's a lot more support that a 9th grader needs than a 10th grader on average. And so that's kind of how we're orienting the world here. We want to make sure everybody does now, don't get me wrong. We want to make sure all our kids are successful, and that transition from 8th to 9th has been, just by the numbers, has been troublesome. I mean, we've had problems. And so we would like to be able to construct a world where, yes, we know that transition will happen from 6 to 7, but there's going to be a lot more support in that environment, and then as they transition to 9th grade now, it really won't be a transition, and by the time they're in 10th grade, they're a lot more able to handle that freedom that we typically give high school students. And so we feel really good about that, that there's going to be a lot more support for those kids so that we don't see so much attrition at that 9th grade level. Yes, ma'am.
I guess I just want to be assured that my 7th grader will not be hanging by the 12th graders. And I just need to know that as a parent, not coming as a staff right now, as a parent. That is my absolute #1 concern. And, you know, I hear you saying with the flow of it, and I get that to a degree, but, and I understand mentoring opportunities, but because there is such a vastly different, you know, maturity level between 7 and 12, and I feel like currently, I know, you know, that there's GHS North, but there's a lot of flow there too, and I don't think that was initially the concept of it. And so I just need to be assured that that's being heard, that
Absolutely.
I don't want that flow becoming too much of a flow between 7 and 12.
If you don't want to see your 7th grader going to prom with your 12th grader.
Well, yeah,
That's
Right,
right.
that's a parent, but you don't want them interacting too much.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I can absolutely assure you that we will set up a structure where that is not a common occurrence. Will it happen incidentally on, yeah, I mean, we can't say where 1,800 kids are going to be every day, all the time. There's going to be, you know, teachers moving with somebody else to do something at one time, one day, you know. But yeah, we absolutely are making that a very large priority. That there's not this free flowing population that can go down. And having been in enough districts where that's the case, I can tell you 12th graders don't want to be seen in a junior high building.
Right.
Okay, so
I was
it's
just
not-
getting ready to interject that.
Yeah, that's
And
not-
most of your 7th graders are scared to death of the upperclassmen as well, so that's another,
Right.
not necessarily deterrent, but that's another thing for everybody to keep in mind. Not all of them, but yeah, a lot of them.
This is a completely different topic, but I haven't looked at the plans for what's going to actually, what areas of the school are actually going to be modified. Are the area where the science labs are going to be affected by this?
Well, we aren't planning to remodel those, and they are, we haven't guaranteed yet, but all signs point to they will remain open during the remodel.
Because that would be a big thing to have to create.
No, right. So we'll have to have junior high lab spaces, but not the high school.
So back to the mix of the 7th and 8th with what? PE is the one that sticks out in my mind as being the most troublesome, I think, because we don't have enough gym space, like, to accommodate this.
Well, we do and we don't. We don't use steel.
Well, and I foresee that, like, I don't know, let's just, for example, like, is Whitehall gonna be like the 7th and 8th PE area? Well, Whitehall's going through a huge transition next year into a cafeteria and library. So, you know, what if that doesn't get transitioned back into a gym? Are we still moving 7th and 8th grade here? Like-
I'm glad you asked that question. So
Okay.
no, we're not going to move the 7th and 8th grade here until it's done. Okay? So we have the ability to keep Churchill open another period of time if we have to. So yeah, no, we're not planning to do that.
Okay.
I was just gonna see, or ask about, like, Ms. Cooper's room, those kind of things. How are those classrooms being affected for special ed?
Well, I'm happy to report they're going to be changed. So, you know, it's so scary. Yeah, our life skills and those classes, the ED, they are going to be improved dramatically. You know, we have some very, we think, creative thoughts for what to do with them that'll be far superior to what they're doing now. Not the program, I mean, but their facility. The program's fantastic.
And as next year?
Next year, they will be at Yale. They're at Rose Hogan. I'm in my head, I'm going, that's north. Yeah, Rose Hogan. They'll be at Rose Hogan. Which is better than the space they're in now.
Yes. Can I ask something?
Sure.
So going back to a comment you made, you didn't have a permanent plan for North. And just kind of want to know what you might know that.
Well, let's go back. She asked the question of permanent plan for North. So going back to the idea that 9th graders aren't always necessarily high schoolers. No. We, and Mr. Spring led, a committee on alternative education. So we believe that alternative education should be considered earlier than 9th grade. And so we're trying to look at it more holistically than that. So when we talk about north, we may not have north as it is now. We may, but it'll be something. But as I said at the board meeting the other night, if we move it across town, we're not going to call it north anymore. We'll have to call it east or something. I mean, at some point we have to make the name make sense. But we have a commitment to alternative education, and we just
And
want
not combining ways.
combining rays.
Not-
No.
Okay. Two separate.
Two separate.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So with 7th to 8th grade, combining with the high school, are they allowed to apply for North with the 9th to 12th graders at North?
Well, that's part of the conversation we're having. Like, when is it appropriate to start transitioning those students into an alternative education setting? So at this point, the best thing I can tell you is we're not saying absolutely not. Yes, ma'am.
If that is happening, is North going to be its own separate building completely from GHS?
We don't know. We don't know yet. We don't know yet.
With next year with gym, how is it going to work? I mean, there'll be locker spaces or?
With gym?
Gym class.
Well, they already use the field house for that anyway, so the high school for physical education really should be. Other than adaptive PE, which uses our field gymnasium, that won't really have to be altered. Yeah, that's the one area that really won't see much change.
Okay.
So how soon are the modular rooms going to be ready? Will high school start on time like everybody else, the normal start time in August, or is there going to be a delay? What do you?
That is not any part of our intention.
Okay.
Our modular units will start being delivered here in March, we believe. There's a lot of hookup that has to go into that, combining and everything. But yeah, we wouldn't want to put together a plan where there was different start dates for kids. So that's not been any part of any discussion we've had.
Is there another building being built kind of in the grassy field there behind where the modular home or modular buildings are going to be? Any building that's supposed to be going up there?
In where?
The great grassy space south of Gale, kind of like between the Abilene Road. I heard.
No, so that's where that new soccer field's going to go. That's replacing, and that's actually a geothermal field. You can't really build there.
Okay.
7 feet down, there's water tubes that go down forever, and you don't
Yeah,
want
I
to get
heard
those.
that they were building something.
Yeah. No.
There is just such field.
Offense.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for. Let's see now. Who's the highest ranked? 40 left. We've got 3 board members here. Hold on, I'm going to do something real quick. Motion to adjourn. Who wants the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Okay. There we go. 7:20.